Most people believe the biggest obstacle to financial freedom is a lack of money. They think a higher salary, a better investment, or the right business opportunity will finally change their lives. But if money alone created wealth, then everyone with a good income would eventually become financially free. The reality is very different. Two people can earn the same amount, live in the same city, and have access to the same opportunities, yet end up with completely different futures. The invisible force separating them is not income, it is identity. Long before wealth appears in a bank account, it first appears in the way a person sees themselves. Your financial reality will almost always rise or fall to match the identity you reinforce every day. From an early age, most people are conditioned to seek certainty rather than ownership. They are rewarded for following instructions, avoiding mistakes, and finding stability. This creates reliable employees, but rarely creates wealth builders. Employees naturally ask, "How can I earn more?" Builders ask, "How can I create more value?" That small difference in thinking changes every decision that follows. One mindset depends on permission. The other searches for leverage. One waits for opportunities to appear. The other develops the ability to create opportunities that did not exist before. Wealth is not simply the result of working harder, it is the result of thinking differently. This is why changing external circumstances without changing internal identity rarely lasts. Someone who still believes they are only an employee will eventually return to employee thinking, even if they briefly experience financial success. They seek predictable outcomes, avoid calculated risks, and unconsciously reject opportunities that require a larger version of themselves. Human behavior naturally protects existing identity. People consistently act in ways that confirm what they already believe about themselves. Until that belief changes, lasting financial transformation remains unlikely. The wealthiest builders understand something that most people overlook. Every repeated action is casting a vote for the person you are becoming. Every hour spent developing a valuable skill reinforces the identity of a creator. Every thoughtful investment strengthens the identity of an owner. Every difficult decision made with long-term thinking expands the belief that you are capable of building something greater. Identity is not formed through one dramatic breakthrough. It is formed through thousands of ordinary decisions, repeated consistently until they become automatic. Another important shift happens when you stop measuring yourself by effort alone and begin measuring yourself by the value you create. The marketplace does not reward how busy you are. It rewards how useful you become. Solving bigger problems creates bigger opportunities because value always attracts capital. Instead of asking how to work longer, ask how to become more difficult to replace. Develop expertise that solves expensive problems. Build skills that scale beyond your time, and learn to think in systems instead of tasks. Income grows naturally when your capacity to create value expands. This is also why successful people protect their standards more carefully than their comfort. Standards shape identity. If your standard is to keep learning, improving, and taking responsibility, regardless of circumstances, your behavior eventually follows. Small improvements begin compounding into larger results. Better decisions create better habits. Better habits reinforce a stronger identity. Over time, that identity becomes so deeply rooted that disciplined action no longer feels forced. It becomes natural. The person changes first, and the financial results simply catch up. Notice that every lasting success story follows the same invisible pattern. Outsiders usually see the business, the investments, or the wealth. They rarely see the years spent reshaping beliefs, raising standards, and replacing limiting assumptions with empowering ones. The external victory is simply the visible evidence of an internal transformation that happened long before anyone noticed. Builders understand that success is not an event. It is the delayed result of becoming the type of person capable of producing it repeatedly. Ask yourself a simple question. If your current income disappeared tomorrow, would the identity you have built allow you to create it again? Or does your confidence depend entirely on your present circumstances? The answer reveals far more about your future than your bank balance ever could. Money can be lost, Markets can change, and opportunities can disappear. But a strong identity continues creating value under almost any condition because it shapes every decision you make. Financial freedom does not begin when your income reaches a certain number. It begins the moment your identity no longer depends on security, approval, or predictable outcomes. The invisible ceiling above your financial life is never set by the economy, your education, or your starting point. It is set by the person you believe yourself to be. Raise that ceiling by becoming someone who thinks like an owner, acts like a builder, and measures success by the value you create rather than the comfort you protect. Once that transformation takes place, wealth stops feeling like something you chase. It becomes the natural consequence of the person you have become. Most people believe they make financial decisions independently. They assume every career choice, spending habit, investment, or business idea is the result of personal logic. But human behavior rarely works that way. Long before you consciously decide what to do, your environment has already influenced what feels normal, what feels risky, and even what you believe is possible. If everyone around you treats financial freedom as unrealistic, your ambitions quietly shrink to match theirs. If the people closest to you believe security is more important than ownership, you slowly begin protecting stability instead of pursuing opportunity. Your environment is not simply where you live. It is the invisible operating system that programs thousands of decisions before you even realize you are making them. This explains why two people with similar intelligence and education can produce dramatically different financial outcomes. One grows up surrounded by people who discuss ideas, businesses, investments, and long-term opportunities. The other hears constant conversations about bills, limitations, and why success belongs only to the lucky. Neither environment guarantees a specific future, but both shape expectations. Expectations become habits. Habits become decisions. Decisions eventually become reality. Most people never question the beliefs they inherit, because those beliefs feel completely normal inside the environment where they were formed. Builders understand that changing their future often begins by changing their surroundings. They stop asking how to become more motivated and begin asking whether their current environment supports the life they want to build. Every conversation either expands your thinking or quietly limits it. Every friendship either raises your standards or encourages you to settle. Every hour spent consuming negative information conditions the mind to expect problems instead of possibilities. Growth accelerates when your daily environment consistently reinforces the behaviors you want, rather than constantly fighting against them. One of the most powerful forms of environmental leverage is choosing who influences your thinking. Successful people rarely surround themselves with individuals who simply validate their existing beliefs. They deliberately seek mentors, ambitious peers, and builders who challenge their assumptions. This is not because they need constant advice. It is because higher standards are contagious. Spend enough time around people solving difficult problems, and your own definition of what is possible begins to expand. Human beings naturally adapt to the expectations of the groups they belong to. Choose the wrong group, and average becomes acceptable. Choose the right one, and growth becomes unavoidable. Your digital environment matters just as much as your physical one. Every notification competes for attention. Every algorithm shapes your focus. Every hour spent scrolling through distractions is an hour that could have been invested in developing a valuable skill or building an opportunity. Attention has become one of the world's most valuable forms of capital, because whatever consistently captures your attention eventually shapes your identity. Builders understand this, so they treat information the same way investors treat money. They allocate it intentionally instead of spending it impulsively. Another overlooked advantage is creating space for uninterrupted thinking. Modern life rewards constant reaction, yet meaningful progress usually comes from reflection rather than interruption. Many of the best business ideas, investment decisions, and life-changing strategies emerge only after periods of focused thought. Solitude should not be confused with isolation. Isolation disconnects you from opportunity, but intentional solitude allows you to step outside the noise long enough to evaluate your direction objectively. Without that space, most people spend their lives reacting to circumstances instead of designing them. Behavioral psychology offers another important insight. People usually do not rise to the level of their intentions, they fall to the level of their environment. This is why relying on willpower eventually fails. If your surroundings constantly encourage distraction, overspending, or procrastination, discipline becomes exhausting. But when your environment naturally supports learning, productive work, and long-term thinking, the right decisions require far less effort. Success becomes less about forcing yourself forward and more about removing the invisible friction holding you back. Take an honest look at your current environment. Do the people around you inspire growth or normalize excuses? Does your daily routine move you toward ownership or keep you trapped in repetition? Does the information you consume strengthen your thinking or simply entertain you? These questions matter because your future is rarely determined by one dramatic decision. It is shaped by thousands of small choices influenced by the environment you experience every day. The people who achieve extraordinary wealth understand that changing their surroundings is often easier than constantly fighting their habits. They build environments where learning is expected, discipline is supported, and ambitious thinking becomes normal. Over time, those conditions reshape identity, strengthen decision-making, and create results that appear effortless from the outside. Your environment is always programming your future. The only real question is whether you designed that program yourself or allowed someone else to write it for you. Most people assume success belongs to those with the most talent or the most original ideas. They believe they must discover a completely unique path, solve every problem on their own, and learn every lesson through personal experience. It sounds admirable, but it is also one of the slowest ways to build wealth. Every year, countless entrepreneurs, investors, and creators waste valuable time making mistakes that have already been solved by someone else. The greatest advantage is not being the first person to face a challenge. It is becoming the person who learns from decades of proven thinking before taking the first step. Wealth accelerates when you stop reinventing success and start borrowing better ways to think. History leaves behind more than stories, it leaves behind decision patterns. Markets change, technology evolves, and industries rise and fall, but human behavior remains remarkably consistent. Fear still causes people to panic. Greed still encourages reckless decisions. Patience still outperforms impulse over long periods of time. The builders who create lasting wealth understand these patterns and use them to their advantage. They spend less time asking, "What should I do next?" and more time asking, "How have exceptional people approached similar situations throughout history?" That question transforms experience accumulated over generations into an advantage available today. This is where many people make a critical mistake. They copy visible habits instead of invisible thinking. They imitate morning routines, productivity systems, or public lifestyles without understanding the principles that made those behaviors effective. Success is rarely found in what successful people do on the surface. It is found in how they evaluate opportunities, process uncertainty, and make difficult decisions when no obvious answer exists. Two great entrepreneurs may build completely different companies, yet both succeed because they rely on similar mental frameworks. They think in leverage instead of effort, probabilities instead of certainty, and long-term value instead of short-term emotion. Learning these mental models dramatically shortens the path to mastery. A mental model is not another piece of information to memorize. It is a framework for making better decisions across different situations. Instead of reacting emotionally, builders analyze incentives. Instead of asking whether an opportunity looks exciting, they ask whether it creates sustainable value. Instead of chasing trends, they search for timeless principles that remain useful regardless of changing technology or economic cycles. Strong mental models reduce confusion because they simplify complexity without ignoring reality. One reason this approach is so powerful is that it allows you to benefit from thousands of experiences without personally paying the cost of every mistake. A great biography is not simply the story of one successful life. It is a compressed collection of lessons earned through decades of victories and failures. One thoughtful book can reveal patterns that would otherwise take years to discover. One conversation with an experienced builder can prevent decisions that might have delayed your progress for an entire decade. Learning from others is not imitation. it is intelligent leverage. But information alone changes nothing. Modern society has become incredibly good at collecting knowledge while remaining poor at applying it. Many people consume business books, podcasts, and educational content every day, yet continue making the same financial decisions because learning never reaches the level of behavior. Knowledge creates value only when it influences action. Every principle you adopt should improve the quality of your decisions, not simply increase the number of facts you know. If an idea never changes what you do, it has little practical value regardless of how inspiring it sounded. Another overlooked lesson is to study decision-making instead of outcomes. People naturally admire visible success while ignoring the invisible process behind it. They celebrate the billion-dollar company, but never examine the years of disciplined thinking that made it possible. They notice the profitable investment, but ignore the countless opportunities that were wisely rejected. Great builders are often defined as much by what they refuse to pursue as by what they choose to build. Better thinking is not about saying yes more often. It is about making fewer, higher quality decisions. As your thinking improves, something remarkable begins to happen. Opportunities that once seemed invisible become obvious. Problems that once felt overwhelming become manageable. Confidence no longer comes from hope, but from understanding. You stop depending on luck because your decision-making process becomes stronger. Instead of reacting to events, you begin anticipating them. That shift is what separates builders from spectators. The external world may remain uncertain, but your ability to navigate uncertainty becomes increasingly reliable. The people who build extraordinary wealth rarely possess secret information unavailable to everyone else. Their real advantage is that they borrow wisdom before chasing results. They learn from history instead of repeating it. They adopt proven mental frameworks instead of relying on impulse. They spend less time trying to appear successful and more time understanding how success is actually created. When you begin thinking the way exceptional builders think, your decisions improve. Better decisions create better opportunities. Better opportunities create lasting wealth. In the end, success is rarely invented from nothing. It is usually built by standing on the accumulated wisdom of those who solved similar problems long before you arrived. Most people believe learning automatically leads to success. Every year, they buy more books, enroll in more courses, watch more business videos, and collect endless advice, convinced that one more piece of information will finally change their lives. Yet many of them remain exactly where they started. The problem is not a lack of knowledge. It is the absence of focused execution. Information creates potential, but execution creates results. Wealth is rarely built by the person who knows the most. It is built by the person who consistently applies a small number of powerful ideas with extraordinary discipline. The modern world rewards information consumption while quietly encouraging distraction. Every day there is a new strategy, a new trend, a new business model, or a new technology promising faster success. Many ambitious people chase all of them at once. They spend 1 month learning marketing, the next studying investing, then move to artificial intelligence, sales, branding, or real estate before becoming exceptional at any single skill. They mistake movement for progress. In reality, every new direction resets momentum. Instead of allowing one capability to compound, they continuously start over, remaining busy but rarely becoming valuable enough to stand out. Builders approach growth differently. They understand that every extraordinary career is built around one dominant advantage. Instead of asking, "What else should I learn?" they ask, "What skill creates the greatest long-term leverage if I master it?" Once that answer becomes clear, they direct most of their time, attention, and energy toward developing that single capability. This is not because other knowledge lacks value. It is because concentrated effort produces exponential returns, while scattered effort produces average results. Focus is not about doing more. It is about refusing to dilute your greatest opportunity. Execution becomes powerful because repetition creates mastery. Every deliberate practice session strengthens competence. Greater competence builds confidence. Confidence attracts larger opportunities. Larger opportunities provide resources to improve even further. Over time, a reinforcing cycle begins. The same hours that once produced small improvements now create increasingly valuable outcomes because previous effort continues generating returns. This is the true nature of compounding. It applies not only to money, but also to skill, reputation, and influence. The people who stay focused long enough eventually reach a point where progress appears effortless, even though it was built through years of disciplined repetition. Another mistake many people make is confusing curiosity with commitment. Curiosity encourages exploration, which is valuable in the beginning, but lasting success requires commitment to one direction long enough for meaningful results to emerge. Every time you abandon a project before momentum develops, you lose more than time. You lose the opportunity for your previous effort to compound. Builders understand that consistency often matters more than intensity. They would rather execute one important strategy for years than enthusiastically pursue 10 different strategies for a few weeks each. Attention has become one of the most valuable economic resources in the modern world. Every distraction steals not only minutes, but also momentum. Constant interruptions prevent deep thinking, reduce creativity, and weaken decision-making. This is why highly successful people aggressively protect their attention. They eliminate unnecessary commitments, reduce low-value activities, and create long periods of uninterrupted work. They know that extraordinary ideas rarely appear during moments of constant distraction. They emerge when attention is fully invested in solving one meaningful problem. A practical way to think about this is through strategic concentration. Every decision should strengthen your primary advantage instead of competing with it. Before accepting a new opportunity, ask whether it expands the capability you want to become known for. If it does not, it may be profitable in the short term, but expensive in the long term because it fragments your focus. The strongest personal brands, businesses, and careers are rarely built by chasing everything. They are built by becoming exceptionally good at something that continues creating value year after year. This also changes the purpose of learning itself. Knowledge is no longer collected for entertainment or the satisfaction of feeling informed. Every new idea must improve execution. Every book should strengthen decision-making. Every lesson should increase the value of your existing advantage. Learning becomes a tool for sharpening focus instead of expanding distraction. When information immediately influences action, it stops being passive knowledge and becomes productive capital, capable of generating measurable returns. Look closely at almost every extraordinary builder, and you will notice the same pattern. They were not the people consuming the most information. They were the people applying the right information with relentless consistency. While others searched endlessly for better strategies, they mastered the strategy already in front of them. Focused execution transformed ordinary knowledge into extraordinary results because they understood a principle most people overlook. Learning opens the door, but disciplined execution determines how far you walk through it. In the end, wealth belongs not to those who know the most, but to those who remain focused long enough for their best ideas to compound into lasting value. Most people think growth begins when they have enough confidence, enough money, or enough certainty to make a bold move. So they wait. They wait until the timing feels perfect, until the risk feels smaller, and until success seems almost guaranteed. But that moment rarely arrives. The greatest opportunities in life almost always demand commitment before certainty. The people who build extraordinary wealth understand a simple truth. Comfort protects today's life, but expansion creates tomorrow's life. Every meaningful breakthrough requires stepping beyond the familiar, long before the outcome becomes visible. This is why the wealthy think differently about investment. Most people immediately think about stocks, real estate, or businesses. Builders begin with something far more important. They invest in expanding their own capacity. They know that every new skill, every valuable relationship, every difficult experience, and every lesson learned increases their future earning potential. Money invested in personal growth often produces returns that no traditional investment can match, because it permanently improves the quality of every decision made afterward. Before capital compounds, capability must compound. Unfortunately, comfort quietly convinces people that staying where they are is the safest option. A stable job feels secure. Familiar routines feel efficient. Existing skills feel sufficient. Yet comfort carries an invisible cost that rarely appears until years later. While you remain in the same environment, industries evolve. Technology changes. Markets shift. Opportunities move toward people willing to adapt faster than everyone else. The greatest financial risk is often not losing money. It is becoming too comfortable to keep growing while the world continues moving forward without you. Builders deliberately place themselves in situations that demand growth. They accept responsibilities slightly beyond their current ability. They enter conversations with people more experienced than themselves. They invest in education before they desperately need it. They pursue opportunities that require them to become someone more capable, instead of waiting until they already feel qualified. Growth rarely happens because people feel ready. It happens because circumstances force them to develop faster than they would have chosen on their own. One principle explains why this works so consistently. Commitment changes behavior. When very little is at stake, effort remains optional. People procrastinate, delay important decisions, and settle for average execution because failure has few consequences. But when meaningful commitment exists, attention becomes sharper and action becomes faster. This is why entrepreneurs often grow more rapidly after launching a business than while endlessly planning one. Real responsibility transforms intention into execution. The moment you commit, your mind begins searching for solutions instead of excuses. This does not mean chasing reckless risks or believing every bold decision will succeed. Intelligent expansion is very different from gambling. Builders calculate downside before pursuing upside. They understand the worst possible outcome, prepare for it, and then move forward anyway, if the long-term opportunity justifies the temporary uncertainty. They never confuse courage with impulsiveness. Real confidence comes from preparation combined with action, not from pretending fear does not exist. Fear is normal. Allowing fear to become your permanent strategy is what becomes dangerous. Another overlooked investment is exposure. Every new environment changes what you believe is possible. Spending time with ambitious builders raises your standards. Entering unfamiliar industries reveals opportunities invisible from your current position. Traveling, attending high-level events, or working alongside exceptional people often creates opportunities that cannot be predicted beforehand. These experiences are valuable not because they guarantee immediate results, but because they permanently expand the way you think. Once your perspective grows, your old limitations become difficult to believe. Notice that nearly every successful person can identify one decision that dramatically changed the direction of their life. It was rarely the safest decision. It was usually the moment they invested beyond their comfort zone, starting the company they were afraid to build, accepting responsibility before feeling prepared, learning a difficult skill that later became invaluable, or entering a room where they initially felt out of place. Those moments seemed risky at the time, but they eventually became the foundation for everything that followed. The people who create extraordinary wealth understand that comfort is not the reward for growth, it is often the obstacle to it. They continuously invest in becoming more capable because they know greater capability attracts greater opportunity. Every calculated investment into knowledge, relationships, reputation, or experience expands future possibilities. While most people protect what they already have, builders focus on increasing what they are able to create. In the end, lasting wealth belongs to those who repeatedly cross the borders of comfort, not because they enjoy uncertainty, but because they understand that every meaningful expansion of life begins exactly where comfort ends. Most people believe personal value is determined by how hard they work. They assume that mastering a skill, working longer hours, and producing better results will naturally create wealth. Those things matter, but only to a point. Every individual is limited by time. No matter how talented you become, there will always be a ceiling on what your personal effort can produce. The people who build extraordinary wealth eventually discover a different game. They stop asking how to create more value alone and start asking how to multiply the value they already create. That multiplier is influence. Hard work creates opportunity, but influence allows that opportunity to expand through other people. Influence is often misunderstood because many people confuse it with popularity or persuasion. In reality, genuine influence begins with usefulness. People naturally trust individuals who consistently solve meaningful problems. A business grows because customers believe its products improve their lives. A leader earns loyalty because people trust their judgment during uncertainty. An investor attracts partners because previous decisions created confidence. In every case, influence is built long before anyone notices it. It grows quietly, through repeated demonstrations of competence, integrity, and reliability. Trust is never demanded, it is accumulated. This explains why communication becomes one of the highest return skills anyone can develop. Brilliant ideas have little value if they remain trapped inside your own mind. Every successful founder must communicate vision. Every salesperson must communicate value. Every leader must communicate direction. The clearer your message becomes, the easier it is for other people to understand your purpose and act with confidence. Communication is not about speaking more. It is about reducing uncertainty. The faster people understand what you offer and why it matters, the faster value begins moving through your network. Builders also understand that influence is created through contribution before recognition. Most people enter relationships asking what they can gain. They focus on connections that might advance their careers or increase their income. Exceptional builders reverse that equation. They ask how they can become useful first. They introduce opportunities, solve problems, share knowledge, and help others succeed without immediately expecting something in return. Over time, this creates a powerful reputation. People begin associating your name with reliability instead of self-interest. That reputation quietly opens doors that talent alone rarely unlocks. One of the most valuable assets in business is something that never appears on a balance sheet: trust capital. Every promise you keep increases it. Every commitment you honor strengthens it. Every problem you solve adds another layer to it. Trust capital compounds exactly like financial capital. As it grows, decisions become easier. Clients hesitate less. Partnerships develop faster. Recommendations spread naturally because people reduce risk by choosing someone whose credibility has already been proven. Eventually, opportunities begin finding you instead of requiring constant pursuit. Another important shift happens when influence replaces transaction. Average performers focus on individual sales, projects, or negotiations. Builders focus on long-term relationships. They understand that one satisfied client can create years of referrals. One respected partner can introduce dozens of future opportunities. One valuable relationship can become the source of an entirely new business. Instead of maximizing every transaction, they maximize lifetime trust. This approach creates a network that becomes stronger every year because every successful interaction increases the probability of another one. Influence also allows value to scale beyond your direct effort. A respected teacher reaches thousands through students. A trusted entrepreneur grows through employees who share the same vision. A creator expands through an audience willing to recommend valuable ideas. Influence transforms individual effort into collective momentum. Once enough people believe in your ability to create value, your work begins multiplying without requiring proportionally more time. This is where leverage becomes visible. Reputation starts working while you are not. Notice that the most influential people rarely try to impress everyone. They focus on becoming deeply valuable to a specific group of people. Credibility grows through consistency, not through constant attention. They protect their reputation because they understand that one careless decision can damage years of trust. Influence is fragile in the short term, but incredibly powerful in the long term when built patiently. Every ethical decision, every fulfilled promise, and every meaningful contribution strengthens an asset that competitors cannot easily copy. The people who create lasting wealth eventually realize that their greatest opportunity is not working another hour, but becoming someone others willingly trust, follow, and recommend. Skills may open the first door, but influence opens every door after that. Build competence until your work speaks for itself. Build character until your reputation travels ahead of you. Build trust until opportunities arrive before you have to ask for them. In the end, personal value reaches its highest level when it no longer depends only on what you can do alone, but on how many people believe in your ability to create value together. Most people begin ambitious goals with incredible enthusiasm. They promise themselves that this time will be different. They buy the books, create the plans, set new goals, and work with intense energy for a few weeks. Then reality arrives. Motivation fades, unexpected problems appear, and daily routines slowly replace excitement. Before long, the same goals that once felt inspiring become another unfinished project. The problem is not a lack of desire. The problem is depending on motivation to carry a journey that requires consistency. Motivation starts action, but systems sustain progress. The people who build extraordinary wealth understand that emotions are temporary, while well-designed systems continue working whether they feel inspired or not. This is why every successful organization measures performance instead of relying on optimism. Businesses track revenue, customer retention, operating costs, and productivity, because numbers reveal reality more honestly than emotions ever can. Yet, many people approach their personal finances and careers with vague intentions, such as, "I want to be successful," or "I want financial freedom." Those statements provide inspiration, but no direction. A goal becomes meaningful only when it can be measured, reviewed, and improved. If progress cannot be measured, improvement quickly becomes guesswork instead of strategy. Builders think differently because they focus on leading indicators instead of waiting for final outcomes. They understand that wealth is created long before money appears. Instead of measuring only income, they measure the behaviors producing that income. A business owner tracks conversations with potential clients, conversion rates, customer satisfaction, and recurring revenue. An investor measures saving rates, investment discipline, and portfolio allocation rather than reacting to daily market prices. A creator measures consistency of publishing, audience engagement, and skill development instead of obsessing over occasional viral success. They understand that controlling daily actions is far easier than controlling future results. One reason systems work so well is that they remove unnecessary decision-making. Every day, people waste enormous mental energy deciding whether they feel like working, learning, exercising, or improving. Builders eliminate that question altogether. They create routines that automatically move important work forward, regardless of mood. The system becomes responsible for consistency, allowing discipline to depend less on willpower and more on structure. Instead of constantly searching for inspiration, they build environments where productive action becomes the default response. Another advantage of measurement is that it replaces emotion with feedback. Most people interpret setbacks as evidence that they are failing. Builders interpret setbacks as information. If the numbers stop improving, they do not immediately question their ability. They question the process. They adjust pricing, improve communication, refine marketing, strengthen habits, or redesign workflows. Every measurement becomes another opportunity to learn. Failure is no longer personal. It simply indicates that one part of the system requires improvement. This mindset allows progress to continue without emotional overreaction. Small improvements become incredibly powerful because of feedback loops. Imagine improving a daily process by just 1% every week. The change seems insignificant in the beginning, but each improvement strengthens the next one. Better habits produce better results. Better results provide better information. Better information leads to smarter decisions. Smarter decisions improve the system again. Over months and years, these small adjustments create outcomes that appear extraordinary from the outside, even though they were built through ordinary improvements repeated consistently. This approach also protects people from one of the biggest enemies of long-term success: inconsistency. Motivation encourages intense effort, followed by long periods of inactivity. Systems encourage sustainable progress. Builders understand that a strategy repeated for years will almost always outperform bursts of extreme effort that cannot be maintained. They would rather complete meaningful work every day than rely on occasional moments of extraordinary inspiration. Consistency creates momentum, and momentum eventually becomes one of the strongest competitive advantages available. Take an honest look at your own goals. If someone examined your calendar, daily habits, and measurable actions, would they predict the future you hope to create? Or would they predict something completely different? Your routines tell the truth that your ambitions sometimes hide. Dreams are important because they provide direction, but systems determine whether those dreams ever become reality. Every lasting achievement is simply the visible result of invisible processes repeated long enough to compound. The people who create lasting wealth never expect motivation to rescue them. They build systems strong enough to keep moving when motivation disappears. They measure behaviors instead of wishes, improve processes instead of making excuses, and trust objective feedback instead of temporary emotions. Over time, those systems become self-reinforcing, producing better decisions, stronger habits, and greater opportunities with every cycle. In the end, success belongs to those who stop asking how to stay motivated and start asking how to build a system that keeps producing progress, even on the days they do not feel like trying. Data never lies, and a well-designed system quietly turns ordinary discipline into extraordinary results. Most people believe the greatest challenge is becoming successful. They imagine that once they reach financial freedom, build a thriving business, or achieve the recognition they have always wanted, life will finally become easier. In many ways, it does. But history reveals a pattern that few people expect. Reaching success is often easier than sustaining it. Countless fortunes, businesses, and careers have disappeared not because their owners lacked talent, but because success slowly replaced curiosity with comfort. The moment people believe they have arrived, they stop becoming the person who made success possible in the first place. Growth slows, standards decline, and yesterday's advantage quietly becomes tomorrow's weakness. This is why extraordinary builders never treat success as a destination. They see it as proof that one strategy worked under one set of circumstances. They know markets evolve, technology advances, competitors improve, and customer expectations constantly change. What created opportunity 5 years ago may become irrelevant tomorrow. Instead of protecting old victories, they keep preparing for future ones. They remain students long after others begin calling them experts, because they understand that learning is not a phase of success. It is the condition that allows success to continue. One of the greatest dangers of achievement is invisible. Comfort rarely arrives as a dramatic event. It appears through small compromises. You stop reading because you believe you already know enough. You stop seeking difficult feedback because praise feels better than criticism. You stop taking calculated risks because protecting your current position seems more important than expanding it. None of these decisions feel dangerous in isolation, yet together they slowly reduce the qualities that created success in the first place. Decline usually begins long before financial results reveal it. Builders deliberately fight this tendency by raising their standards every time they reach a new level. Instead of asking, "What have I achieved?" they ask, "Who do I need to become next?" This shift keeps attention focused on growth instead of accomplishment. Every milestone becomes the starting point for another stage of development. They understand that confidence should come from the ability to keep adapting, not from past achievements that can quickly lose relevance. Continuous improvement becomes part of their identity rather than a temporary project. Another important difference is how they define progress. Average performers often measure success by accumulated possessions, income, or status. Builders measure something deeper, expanding capability. They care about becoming better decision-makers, stronger leaders, clearer communicators, and more effective problem solvers. These abilities continue creating value regardless of changing economic conditions. Wealth becomes the byproduct of increasing capacity instead of the ultimate goal. As long as their ability continues growing, they know future opportunities will continue appearing. This mindset reflects what many strategists describe as playing an infinite game. In a finite game, the objective is to reach the finish line before everyone else. In an infinite game, there is no final victory. The objective is to remain adaptable enough to continue creating value through every stage of life. Winning once matters far less than remaining capable of winning repeatedly. This perspective changes every decision because it encourages long-term thinking instead of temporary achievement. Success is no longer something you possess. It becomes something you earn again and again through continuous adaptation. Notice that the people who continue succeeding for decades share another characteristic. They intentionally expose themselves to new ideas, unfamiliar industries, and people who challenge their assumptions. They refuse to become trapped by their own experience. They understand that past success can become a dangerous filter if it prevents them from recognizing new opportunities. Humility becomes a strategic advantage because it allows learning to continue long after others become convinced they already have all the answers. Take an honest look at your own ambitions. If you reached every financial goal you currently have, would your desire to grow become stronger or weaker? Would you continue investing in your skills, expanding your perspective, and seeking uncomfortable challenges? Or would comfort quietly convince you that you had done enough? The answer matters because lasting success depends less on what you achieve than on who you continue becoming after achievement arrives. The people who create extraordinary wealth never become addicted to comfort. They become addicted to growth. Every accomplishment raises the standard instead of lowering it. Every success creates new responsibility instead of greater complacency. They remain curious when others become certain, disciplined when others become relaxed, and ambitious when others become satisfied. That is why they continue winning long after others stop improving. In the end, the greatest competitive advantage is not intelligence, talent, or even hard work. It is the willingness to keep learning, adapting, and building long after success has given you permission to stop. Those who stay hungry never stop evolving, and because they never stop evolving, they continue creating opportunities long after everyone else has settled for protecting yesterday's achievements.